Today's talk is from a Sannyasini's diary, Memories of Great Monks. And we're going to be spotlighting Swamis Nirmuktananda, Akamananda, and Bhomananda. Now, you probably don't know any of these Swamis, but through modern technology, we're able to bring up a screen to show you some of the photographs of these great monks. Swami Nirmuktananda, known as Upen Maharaj, lived from 1910 to 2013. During my 2007 pilgrimage to India, I was encouraged by the trustees of the order to meet Upen Maharaj, staying at the Arogya Bhavan at Bellarmat for aged sadhus. The face of this simple, joyful monk lit up when I introduced myself to him, because he loved to be with monastics and devotees alike and talk about spiritual life. He was so sweet and so accessible. In 1979, when I first came to India, to 2012, Bellarmat was a gold mine of disciples, of direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna still living, also disciples of the Holy Mother. Upen Maharaj was initiated by Swami Shivananda, and 2 years later he joined the Ramakrishna order in 1931 in Benares, and then served as the attendant to Swami Akhandananda, another direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. And by looking at their faces, it's sort of like a meditation on a devotion to God and on the Absolute as well. Upen Maharaj received his sannyas in 1943 from Swami Virajananda, Holy Mother's disciple. His teachings went right to the heart of spiritual life. Japam, repeating the name of the Lord, and meditation. He reached out to me with his first words. Sri Ramakrishna used to talk to Bhavatarini Kali. We see stone, but he used to talk to her. He then shared an intimate fact that he had heard directly either from his guru, Swami Shivananda, or Swami Akhandananda. He said, while Sri Ramakrishna was living, Mahapurush Maharaj attained samadhi 3 times. When he was in this trance, he could not feel his body. Now, this is what is called an oral tradition, something that is passed down. It may not be written yet in books, but it's coming from the disciples of the direct disciples. He described his guru. Swami Shivananda had a fair complexion. One golden chain was worn around his neck, and it was almost the color of his complexion. I asked, did you ask Mahapurush Maharaj for initiation? And for those of you who are unfamiliar with our tradition, initiation is a sacred ceremony in which the guru imparts the mantra to the disciple. No, he replied. He only told me, this mantra, repeat 108 times. And if you want, you can do more. Now, in those rarefied days, so close to a divine incarnation, there was not yet the formally instated mantra initiation ceremony that we have today. Here in our center, it takes about 2 hours to complete and is done by Swami Sarvadevananda, who is the spiritual leader of this center. Excuse me, I'm having a little problem trying to find my cursor. Oh, here it is. Okay. Technology. Just put the screen here. Okay. There we go. During Sri Ramakrishna's life, he would write the mantra on a disciple's tongue, bestow it through dream or vision. It would often be issued through the direct experience of the disciple. Disciples of Ramakrishna would often initiate in this way as well. For example, when Sister Lalita, whose parents hosted Swami Vivekananda and later Swami Turiyananda in their Pasadena home, she invited Swami Prabhavananda to her Hollywood home in 1939 to start the Vedanta Center there. And she asked him for initiation. But the Swami said, "No, sister, Swami Turiyananda must have initiated you." And upon further inquiry, she disclosed he had written something on her tongue while they were walking together in the rose garden at her family's Pasadena home. Swami Prabhavananda then explained to her, "He wrote your mantra on your tongue. You've already been initiated by Swami Turiyananda." Upen Maharaj continued to share with me, "Now I am 95 years old. I do japam sitting or lying on the bed. With japa, the chosen deity will be here, pointing to his heart, as I mentally do japa." I asked, "Did he give you detailed meditation instructions?" Upen Maharaj replied, "The mind goes here and there, though I am sitting here, so I must keep quiet." He went on, "To practice meditation, one has to first look at the object of meditation, then start. Say a fire is put in front of me. If I look at the fire, then close my eyes, I shall see the fire. So you can look at him," meaning Sri Ramakrishna, "with eyes open, then put him here," pointing to his heart. If you just see the photo, that will also do. When I asked how he pictured the chosen ideal in the heart, seated facing outward or facing inward, he shared, when Mahavir was asked if he had Rama, he opened his chest. Lord Rama was facing outward. The heart is the best place, he went on. Some also meditate between the eyes, but that is difficult. Then he explained an important practice that should accompany meditation. When you sit for meditation, he said, stay quiet for some time. If there has been some concentration in meditation, it will be prolonged. Otherwise, to engage in conversation right after meditation creates mental havoc. Can you sit cross-legged? I asked. Sit straight, but relaxed, like the statue of Ramakrishna. I am looking at him with devotion and pointing to his heart. He is looking at me with all affection. This is the way. He went on, then you will find the whole figure of the master before you with light. It is not a stone. Then he will talk to you. So this is the way of a mystic, because these simple words touch the heart, and we know it comes from experience. Those sadhus don't generally divulge their spiritual experiences. When I sat with Upen Maharaj, the occasion somehow opened up. He was at such an advanced age. I was a long-time sannyasini on pilgrimage from a foreign land, and somehow he was in a mood. He said, I know for a fact that he is. Upen Maharaj began. One time I was in trouble in Rangoon. I prayed to the Lord, "O Lord, I'm suffering very much. Catch hold of my hand." One night I was approaching the smaller gate of the ashram. No man was around, but suddenly I felt a hand here pointing to his arm. Now I know he is. Upen Maharaj then divulged two experiences he often relived throughout his life, a type of darshan of the divine presence. He said, I was in the habit of looking at Guru Maharaj's photo, meaning the photo of Swami Shivananda, for a long time. Once when I turned and looked away, I saw Mahapurush Maharaj's shadow there. He continued, another time I went to the Gangasadar to practice. And the Gangasadar, for those who've never been to India, is a mela that occurs near Kolkata, where the Ganges meets the Bay of Bengal. He said, when I looked out, I saw Mother Ganga in shadow form. My friends called me, but I didn't want to move. At that point in our conversation, I felt comfortable enough to ask Upen Maharaj, you felt Sri Ramakrishna's touch, the touch that gave you faith. Have you seen his face? No, he said. But once when I was looking at his photo, I felt it come alive. Not flesh and blood, but light emanating from it. Upen Maharaj then shared his association with Swami Akhandananda, a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. He said, Swami Akhandananda was stout. He was a strict Brahmin, no meat, fish, or onion allowed in the ashram. He himself had a simple diet, rice, dal, vegetable curry, that's all, and a little condensed milk with sago at night. He went on, after sunset, I used to massage him for 1 hour. He had rheumatic pain, so massage relieved it. He was a disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, so was free, but every morning, regularly, he used to meditate. In the morning, I would make pranam, and he would touch my head. He, Swami Akhandananda, told me that he used to take the dust of Thakur's feet, meaning the master's feet, and then with his thumb, place it on his own forehead in a line down to the end of his nose. For such a soul as Upen Maharaj, his association with two direct disciples of the Master made Sri Ramakrishna's divine play on earth tangibly present to him, even after their passings. And to me, more tangible, just hearing his personal stories of them handed down in this way. You see, we're so close to a divine incarnation. Those great souls were living. Maybe one or two are left. I don't know. But at that time, there were so many. Because I served Akhandananda, he explained, aired his bedding and gave him nightly massages, I would dream of him and feel he was very near. He then added, a dream like that is no joke. It brings conviction. In other words, a spiritual dream is darshan. It leaves an unforgettable impression on the mind. Then Upen Maharaj stated emphatically, read the life of Ramakrishna. After reading just one chapter, meditate on his Leela. It is all there before your eyes. Like that, try to feel his presence. One of the last times I talked with him, Swami Nirmuktananda shared the secret of his spiritual life in a simple sentence. I asked Mahapurush Maharaj to bless me so that I may have devotion to Sri Ramakrishna. He said, yes. Towards the end of his life, his brother monks noted that he had made peace with himself and the world and with God was clearly evident in the sweet and quiet manner he went about during the last few years, and especially his last few days. He was telling others that he was going to go away. He said that the last night also, on the day of his passing, the Swami had his breakfast. Then he was alone. Suddenly 2 rings of the calling bell were heard. The monks came to his room and found him on the floor with a peaceful expression like that of a baby. It is certain that he knew the very minute of his departure. The younger monks wrote. To Swami Ranganathananda, his brother disciple, he once asked, will I have mukti? Swami Ranganathananda replied, you will have mukti, but I will have to come once again and do Vivekananda's work. Swami Akamananda. I don't have his birth date, but he passed away in 2018. During my pilgrimage to Kankal in 2007, I met Swami Akamananda, who I always saw surrounded by young and old sadhus on his veranda outside his room. He was initiated by Swami Akhandananda, a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, in 1934. In 1941, he joined the Ramakrishna order at Nagpur under Swami Bhaskareswarananda, one of the great monks of our order, which you will find out. After a long time at Nagpur, he served at the Mumbai Center, then the Ranchi Morabadi Mission, and as secretary of the Kanpur Ashram from 1978 to 1986. He was leading a retired life at the Ramakrishna Mission Sevashrama in Kankal when one day, on my way to the dining room there, he beckoned me to his veranda and asked me to stop by the next day for a talk. Swami Akamananda was a Raja Yogi and an Advaitin. He had a sharp mind and was very direct in his approach. What is your personal experience? He opened. There was a long pause on my part. Then he said, me? I am just an ordinary man. But unless we attain what we joined this life for, what use is it? Better to live in the world. Such uncompromising idealism he showed in these opening words, which obviously had fueled his spiritual life to attain what he had sought. Swami Akamananda, the Raja Yogi, went on, we must try to stop the waves of the mind and know that we are the observer of the mind. Mind is only matter. He went deeper. When we go to meditate, there sits Thakur, but we are thinking of something else. It happens to everybody, he said. Bring the mind back to Thakur. This we must do all the time. Analyze what you are thinking of. If a sense object, bring it back and place it, the mind, in a higher place. Since this no-nonsense Swami was so direct, I asked, have you been able to stop your mind? Swami Akamananda, the Advaitin, answered, yes. Once one has had that experience, the mind will never come down. It cannot be described. What is the point of meditating then? I asked. Meditation, he said, when I have time, is constant remembrance of who is the experiencer. Who is the experiencer? Of course, there are two levels, the absolute and the relative. The absolute is oneness. The relative is discrimination on who is the witness, the experiencer. He went on. I am so happy with so little, while others are miserable with so much. What makes me happy? I don't need to seek for inspiration outside. It is all within. It has to come from within. There is no coming down from that state. But to practice this path, there cannot be too many sensual samskaras. A simple life is necessary. To you, I have spoken my heart. Later, as I was returning to the guest house after the evening Ramnam ceremony, the Swami again beckoned me to sit with him on his veranda, and I was in for another spiritual smorgasbord. He shared, our spiritual practices must bring change. Otherwise, what are we doing? We go to the temple, close our eyes, and think of other things. We must bring the mind back to Sri Ramakrishna. There is no other way. Then he explained the way, a way we can all practice, and one that immediately distances us from all our desire, anxiety, and sorrow. He said, constantly watch the mind, analyze its desires, be the master of your mind. Since this candid Swami was opening all stops to his treasure trove, I asked, how does the experience of oneness come? There is no agency, he said. For this Swami, these words were not just philosophical hyperbole. It is your real nature, he stated. It is who you are. The next question was, does it come through grace or self-effort? Spiritual life is not easy, he replied. There are many, many difficulties. sometimes much suffering along the way. The mind must constantly discriminate, otherwise it is led astray. He gave a practical example we can all easily hook our mind around. What is religion, he asked? How I see you. Is it an American, a beautiful woman, an ugly person? Then he drove his point home, based on his own experience. No, I see that the same God that is in the temple is the God I see in you. The evening ended with this. In Sri Ramakrishna, we see the embodiment of all higher states of consciousness. Therefore, we meditate upon him. The next Swami I met was Swami Bhomananda, who lived from 1923 to 2019. Some of you may have met him in Pune. He was initiated by Swami Virajananda, Holy Mother's disciple, and joined the order in 1942 and received sannyas in 1952 from Swami Shankarananda, a disciple of Swami Brahmananda. Upon joining in 1942 at Nagpur Math, he served as assistant under Swami Bhaskareswarananda, whom I mentioned before, a disciple of Swami Shivananda. For 40 years he served him, a blessing that transformed his life. Then Swami Bhomananda was transferred to the Pune Math as its first head, which he was for 26 years. Though I first met Swami Bhomananda at Belur Math in 2007, it was during my pilgrimage to India in 2010 that I had the opportunity to share his holy company at the Pune Center. He was then studying the Mandukya Upanishad. He showed me his handwritten notes taken during his classes with Swami Bhaskareswarananda, a dynamic Swami who was sent to Nagpur by Swami Shivananda in order to fulfill Mahapurush Maharaj's actual vision of the future center, already destined to be built up there. Yes, it was a most unusual set of circumstances. Swami Bhaskareswarananda protested that he had no experience in building a center, but Mahapurush Maharaj told him, "You just go and stay there. It will happen." When Swami Bhaskareswarananda showed Mahapurush Maharaj a drawing of his plan for Nagpur, he said, "No, I have seen a much bigger plan for Nagpur." And in fact, it grew to be that. Swami Bhaskareswarananda went and stayed, and later used to say, "Everything happened. The center built itself up through Mahapurush Maharaj's grace." Swami Bhomananda confirmed there was no sense of ego in his work. And later, when my guru, Swami Pravrajika and Swami Nirvanananda, who was vice president of the order and a Brahmagyani, went together to Nagpur, the Swamis agreed, this is Karma Yoga digested. So if you ever go to India, that is a place a must visit. Another Swami of the order, who was also established in Karma Yoga, was Swami Hitananda, a longtime pujari at Belur Math, who systematized the major pujas of the order that we do, including here at the center. Swami Bhomananda explained what he saw in his work. Pavhari Baba, who was the famous air-eating sadhu whom Vivekananda met during his early days of pilgrimage, said, "Perfection is the seed within the practice." What comes to mind, Swami Bhomananda said, is Swami Hitananda, who was keeping Sri Ramakrishna's room. He dusted even the top poles of the mosquito frame so slowly and with such concentration. You could understand Pavhari Baba's statement. He did not rush through that work. It was a worship. Swami Hitananda later systematized the worship of Sri Ramakrishna, which was published in booklet form and covers the theory and practice of the traditional worship of the Ramakrishna order. Swami Bhaskareswarananda loved to give classes on the Shastras, and his dynamism captivated his students. What was his secret? Swami Bhaskareswarananda confided to Bhomananda that Vivekananda would pray before his classes. "Mother, you unveil the layers of ignorance so that I may realize the knowledge." Referring to this preliminary practice, Swami Bhomananda stated, "This is essential. When we study the Upanishads, we must go deeper, not just superficial knowledge." Swami Bhomananda shared another secret to developing real depth of spiritual knowledge. Mahapurush Maharaj told him, "Look at our lives," meaning the direct disciples, "as the living Shastras." In other words, it's one thing to hear the truth of the scriptures, but to see how that truth is digested and manifest in a living example allows us to assimilate the meaning of that truth more deeply. It connects us to the truth in a way that we can begin to model it in our lives and thus realize it for ourselves. Blessed with a direct disciple of Sri Ramakrishna as a guru and a deep love for the Shastras, Swami Bhomananda explained Swami Bhaskareswarananda's special gift as a teacher. When Swami Bhaskareswarananda was at Bhubaneswar, he explained, he used to give classes and Mahapurush Maharaj would attend them. Mahapurush Maharaj could tell then he was fit for sannyas long before his allotted time, so he gave. He added, when Swami Bhaskareswarananda taught us the scriptures, everything he taught was based on his own realization. He used to meditate on the realizations of the Upanishads. Then when he gave the class, it went right into the heart like an electric shock. That was the power of his classes. They would thrill us and make us more endrawn. I asked Swami Bhomananda, do you meditate on such scriptural passages during meditation? He laughed. I need not be in the shrine to meditate. I meditate all the time. He went on, we must meditate on the scriptures and try to assimilate them. Then they go inside us and transform us. Swami Bhomananda then disclosed his own personal experience. Have you read the Vivekachudamani by Shankara? He asked. It will transform your life. Everything I am today is because of that book and by serving Bhaskareswarananda. Then he advised, When you read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna in the evening, it must not be read in a mechanical way. His life and teachings went hand in hand. He is living scripture. One day when we sat outside on the beautiful Pune Mat campus, Swami Bhomananda reminded me, remember when Swamiji was on the boat going to the west, meaning Swami Vivekananda, and it was a starlit night. Sister Nivedita, his dynamic Western disciple who served India, went downstairs to bring Swamiji to the deck to see the beauty. Vivekananda commented, "It is so beautiful outside. Why not see the reality behind that beauty?" As head of the Pune Mat, the Swami then talked about practical Vedanta. How to transform administrative work into karma yoga in order to achieve peace of mind. He said, there are three things in work: the worker, the object of work, and the act of working. All three must become unified in the Supreme Self. Is it not so? That is the goal of yoga. Then he gave a powerful example to drive his philosophical point home. I saw Swami Bhaskareswarananda one day cleaning his fountain pen. It had to be disassembled and each part washed for the ink to flow. Normally we, his attendants, would do this work, but I had to do some work outside the ashram. When I returned, I saw him outside, seated and cleaning his pen, his eyes radiant. That is work as worship. And that is what is meant by worker, object of worship, and act of working, unified in the Supreme Self. Yes, this karma yoga leads to knowledge. It is not just a path of purification, but Vivekananda drove that point home. Karma yoga brings illumination. And when we, the onlooker, see such work being performed in this fashion by the great monks, it elevates us. The other thing we must remember, Swami Bhomananda added, is that we must become introverted. Our senses are going outward. In past lives, we were stones, trees, animals. So we must study our own nature, and then we will know how to improve. Another day I asked, what do you say to aspirants who have had spiritual experiences? He answered, some of those experiences are coming from past impressions, he said. When Swami Sardananda came to the West, he met one American woman who had had the vision of Ramakrishna. This is what he said. But she had never seen Ramakrishna before, I countered. How do you know? He answered, meaning perhaps she had met him in a previous life. Yet another day, the Swami continued our conversation from the previous day. He said, Swami Sardananda, disciple of Sri Ramakrishna, had the vision of Christ in St. Peter's Cathedral in Rome, and the knowledge that he was the disciple of Christ in a previous incarnation. Sri Ramakrishna, when he went to Nadia, also experienced that he was Chaitanya in a previous incarnation. So in this way, a pilgrimage to meet and receive the darshan of such great monks becomes more of an interior journey for all of us. As we associate day after day, an affection and intimacy develops, and these great souls open up their treasure trove to reveal more and more the precious gems of their spiritual life. What happens when one has a dream of one's guru or personal God, I asked? Does not God come? The Swami answered, everything is already there in the mind. When you dream, these are sometimes unfulfilled desires from the waking state. When you dream of the Guru, he is already there in the mind. I asked, do you mean that the Guru appears from the buddhi, the higher mind? He said, the personal God is within. We just have to remove the veils of ignorance. He clarified so simply. Then the question came, how does an aspirant who cherishes the jnani attitude work? Could he say surrender? Ah, replied the Swami, surrender is the last word. When Totapuri, a Vedanta guru, came to Ramakrishna to teach him non-dual Vedanta, the master explained to him, I shall have to ask my mother, meaning the Divine Mother, Mother calling. Swami Bhaumananda said, that is surrender. The Swami went on to explain how Totapuri then became, as it were, the disciple of Sri Ramakrishna. You see, he said, Totapuri's experience after Nirvikalpa Samadhi was only partial. He believed in God transcendent, not transcendent and immanent. He did not accept the lila, the divine play. He went on, that is why Sri Ramakrishna became his guru in this respect. Totapuri experienced extreme stomach pain while he was at Dakshineshwar. In other words, he experienced the body. That can never be an experience from a higher state of knowledge, that of the Vijnani, such as Sri Ramakrishna had, who experienced God as transcendent and immanent. To fill in this conversation, it was only when Totapuri tried to end his pain by committing his body to the Ganges that he realized he was helpless to even do that. As he waded out into the middle of the Ganges, there was not sufficient water to drown in. And you can read this story in the life of Sri Ramakrishna. Then suddenly, a veil was removed from his eyes, and a vision opened up of the omnipresent Divine Mother in water, land, body, mind, illness, and health. And again, the same Mother beyond all these. This twin experience is that of Vijnana. When we take in deep discussions such as this, it is worthwhile to return home and chew the cud, as Sri Ramakrishna used to instruct. In other words, try to assimilate our pilgrimage, the people, the places, and in this case, deep conversations. What does it all mean? In this particular case, the difference between jnana and vijnana, we might ask. We can find our answers in Vivekananda's life. First, he realized in his spiritual life, all is not, God is, that of jnana. Later, after his sadhana had matured, he reached an even higher spiritual insight. God is all. These two apparently contradictory truths are actually two stages of spiritual practice and realization. The path of knowledge is that aspirants are taught first neti neti atma. The self is neither this nor that. It is the Atman. And to strengthen their conviction in the ephemeral nature of the world, they practice this. Once convinced, they're then qualified to ascend the ladder of self-realization to assimilate an even higher truth. Iti iti, it is this, it is this. All this is Brahman. Now this is a state of realization. So at last we come to my last conversation with Swami Bhomananda on this India trip. I asked, how does a jnani learn to practice karma yoga as a vijnani? His answer, there is only one yoga, but different levels of practice. Surrender is a high level. To surrender one's actions is the last word. As our day and time together drew to an end, I asked one final question of the Swami. On his deathbed, Sri Ramakrishna told Narayan, he who was Rama and he who was Krishna is born again as Ramakrishna, but not in your Vedanta sense. Maharaj, I asked, that means the Gita are his words. Swami Bhomananda closed his eyes and nodded. I'd like to end this talk with the summer of 2007, when Swami Bhomananda came to the United States and visited the Hollywood Center, and for several days gave us a monastic class. Many, many Swamis from India have come to the Vedanta Society of Southern California through the years, and he was one of them. He said, it's very interesting the way Swami Bhaskareswarananda trained me. He used to call me Dadu, grandchild. He caught me with his love. Then one day, he stopped talking to me. Immediately, I became introspective and tried to understand what I had done. This went on for days. After some days, Swami Bhaskareswarananda noticed my dark face and suddenly started speaking to me again with the same affection as before. Swami Bhomananda then explained, he was showing me, just as Thakur showed Narendra, when at Dakshineshwar he ignored him for a period of time. Equanimity. We must have that equanimity in life. What regard the direct disciples had for each other, and what power their words had. Swami Bhomananda related, once Swami Bhaskareswarananda took Swami Akhandananda into the Nagpur Center's garden. He asked him to bless him. Swami Akhandananda became grave. What? Did not Dada, meaning his brother disciple, give you all this? As he said that, he pointed all around and was seeing the divine Leela manifest all through Nagpur. And Swami Bhaskareswarananda also saw that. Swami Bhaskareswarananda was a mystic. He used to awaken Swami Bhomananda by asking him to remember the verse, there the sun does not shine, nor the moon, nor the stars, nor the lightning, what to speak of fire. He was intent to remember this verse because he was then experiencing it. After Swami Bhaskareswarananda's prostate operation, Swami Bhomananda used to bathe him while he was reclining in his chair. He would be in bhava, he said, and would have the same pose and look on his face as Mahapurush Maharaj. Swami Bhaskareswarananda passed away on Swami Turiyananda's birthday. Swami Bhaumananda was there and saw that his breathing had stopped. He just wept. After describing Swami Bhaskar-Eswarananda's Mahasamadhi, I asked, do these great souls who achieve Brahmagyan then help those who have served them? The Swami then quietly disclosed, yes, many have had that experience. I also. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace.